It's a battle between two Dan Sullivans in Alaska's Senate race. Two Republicans with the same name are running in the August 18th primary. The Dan Sullivan on your left is a two-term Republican incumbent and ally of President Trump. The Dan Sullivan on your right is a retired teacher who filed his candidacy just 3 days before the deadline. If you thought remembering their different backgrounds was confusing, well, take a look at their campaign logos. Without their middle initials, it's pretty hard to tell which is which. Now Republicans are accusing Democrats of playing a dirty trick on voters, a claim they deny. CBS News election law expert and contributor David Becker is here to talk more about this campaign confusion and quite an interesting race that's shaping up in Alaska. I mean, what are Republicans alleging here, and how are Democrats responding?
So this occasionally comes up, particularly with people with common names, and you'll see someone alleged to be a plant, basically, from the other party intended to confuse voters when they're filling out their ballot. They might not read it really carefully. They might not look at the middle initials. There is always concern about voter confusion. This is a really tough one for the Alaska Elections Division because on the one hand, they want to minimize voter confusion, very understandably. So you also don't want to disqualify someone just because they happen to have a common name, right?
Something that raises a red flag, though, like, hey, these are the same names. I mean, what do you do?
Clearly it did with the Elections Division because they did bar him from the ballot for now. He may challenge that, and that'll be resolved in the courts. There might be ways to navigate this by putting maybe incumbent next to Senator Sullivan's name. Clearly, the middle initials are going to be key here. But we've seen this in other times, usually in lower profile races, more localized races. But it occasionally comes up, and hopefully the voters will be able to read that ballot really carefully.
Yeah, and I was going to say, this isn't necessarily a low-profile race. I mean, this is a seat that Democrats want to flip. So what are their chances here?
Well, I mean, I don't know what the political chances are going to be. Alaska can be a very closely divided state at times. So if there's confusion that affects a few thousand voters, that could affect. And there's not that many voters in Alaska. So we're not going to, you're not going to see millions of voters like we saw in California last week. It's going to be really incumbent upon Senator Sullivan to clearly delineate where he is on the ballot and make sure his voters know who he is. And hopefully the Elections Division will find a way to navigate this.
I want to turn to another state on the West Coast, California, where, of course, voting continues, or I should say counting votes continues there in the Golden State. And that has kind of prompted some unsupported claims of voter fraud. Just from a basic level, why is this particular count taking so long?
Well, I'd suggest it's really not taking necessarily all that long. California is just huge. It has millions and millions of voters. In the very first report on election night, they reported out 5.1 million ballots in California in a primary election. That's more ballots than were cast in 40 states in the presidential election in 2024, just to put that in perspective. So they're counting a lot of ballots. And they had another challenge, which was a lot of ballots were dropped off on election day, mail ballots. And the county election officials throughout California are doing the work that I think we all want them to do, which they are checking every single one of those mail ballots, making sure the right voter returned them, that that person is eligible, that that person didn't try to vote in another way, so there weren't any double voters. And that takes a little bit of time. But as we sit here today, 96% of the ballots were counted. All of the major races have been called. And remember, they weren't just trying to determine who was first. They were trying to determine who was second and third because those top two candidates advanced to the general election. I think this is all the way California operates because they have so many mail ballots and they have so many voters. And we knew this ahead of time. What we're seeing right now is people who might not be happy with the outcome of elections spreading disinformation about it and alleging fraud when there was no fraud that has been found at all. In fact, the U.S. attorney for Los Angeles sent his assistant, the first assistant U.S. attorney, down to the Los Angeles County Vote Counting Center. And that place is transparent. They're live streaming it 24/7. There are observers from all the campaigns and the parties in that building while the votes are being counted. And he, of course, is welcomed in to transparently observe as well.
All right. David Becker, thanks so much for setting the record straight there.
Thank you, Nicole.